I guess where I would have changed from since then is I just didn't realize back then, like I said earlier, about how important it is to have consistent cash flow. And throughout doing some of those moves and buying those different properties, there were times like I put a lot on credit cards to furnish a short-term rental or something. And then paying off the credit card debt was like, oh man, it's like clawing your way out of a bear trap.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Root of All Success with me, your host, the real Jason Duncan. Today I've got a great guy, no pun intended because his last name is Greathouse. Evan Greathouse is on the show today. Evan,
What's
welcome
up,
to the
man?
show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
1 hour drive up here to beautiful Gallatin, Tennessee to be with us today from Lenox Village here in Nashville. Other two guests I've recorded this morning flew in from out of state, so you had the shortest drive, shortest trip, so welcome.
I love it. Love being a local out here.
Yeah, so we're here at Smokers Abbey in Gallatin, Tennessee. Good friend of mine, Joshua Stump, owns this place. He's the proprietor. He has locations here, East Nashville, Memphis, Austin, and I think Jacksonville. It's got lots of locations. Great little smoke shop. If you're into cigars, you should stop into one of them. Big shout out to them for letting us be here today and record in their place. We love it here. It's kind of a cool vibe. So, Evan, we're going to be talking today about bank on yourself. The reason is because you're a bank on yourself professional, but that's not where things started for you. You started out really professionally in real estate. You managed a lot of real estate, owned a lot of real estate, but at some point you made a shift to say, you know what, I'm going to go all in on bank on yourself. Before we talk about what caused the shift, would you give like a 30,000 foot view of what that bank on yourself means so that we can set the context of the show up today?
So bank on yourself it's really, I don't know, probably best described as just like a storehouse of wealth. It's not necessarily intended to be an investment or a replacement for an investment or anything like that. It's intended to be a place where you can store your wealth so that it is liquid and available, ready to go whenever the opportunity comes to invest, or if you have like a major purchase that's coming up, instead of going towards like traditional financing options, banks or credit cards or so on, lines of credit, equity in your home, you can use your cash value, and that'll allow you to still act and jump on those opportunities when they come, especially if it's like buying a real estate deal.
So you and I both know the bank on yourself the idea, the concept challenges a lot of normal mainstream financial advice. So for you, what was the aha moment that made you think, I like this as opposed to the mainstream financial advice?
It's a good question. I've always kind of had a more aggressive approach whenever it comes to investing and financial management of especially when it comes to large purchases and so on. I've always steered more of the away from the really conservative, save, pay off all your debt first, and then you can go and start investing and things like that after you have an emergency fund, the baby steps Dave Ramsey does and all that. And that's just, I don't know. Whenever I started out in real estate, my mentor, who is my oldest brother, he challenged me in that thinking, and so and that's kind of where those foundations started to really firm up, and that was just the very beginning of it though. So that was in 2012 when I started that real estate career. But it's been fun overcoming those obstacles with lots of my clients every day, having to help people understand like this is not your average whole life insurance policy. It's not traditional. It's not what your grandfather had, most likely, and it's going to be used as a tool on a regular basis, not something you have to wait for a long time. So just helping kind of overcome those misconceptions.
Well, even when you were doing real estate before you started doing bank on yourself, and I know you're still kind of in both worlds, but when you were really doing real estate and now when you're doing this, both of those you were really committed, it seems to me, based on what I know about you, of helping other people achieve financial independence. It wasn't just about you, it's helping other people. Why do you believe you have that type of drive to do that?
I've always been kind of mission-minded and oriented in that way. Just I like helping people. I I worked for a nonprofit for a couple of years, and we built water wells in Uganda, and that was just incredibly fulfilling work. But I've also just enjoyed uh, making people successful in just about any way that you can think of. But it's, I don't know, as far as like what about me, financial success is not all that it's always revolved around. It's just been in anything. Like it can be in like, hey, I've read this book and it was a game changer for me. You got to check it out. Those types of things too. Personal development. It's just anything and everything. I just love to share. So that's kind of where that started out, I guess.
Entrepreneurs and business owners can fall into a lot of financial traps in their attempt to build their empires, whether it's through real estate or brick and mortar or home services or any other types of businesses. Based on your experience, what are some of the common financial traps that a lot of business owners fall into?
There have been uh, times personally, I guess one of the biggest financial traps that has affected me is um, the realization for cash flow. And if you don't have the lifeblood of cash flow, then and you don't have windfalls coming in constantly, you're eventually going to run dry.
Hmm.
And these days you can go on past zero and go back like deep into the negatives as far as like debt goes, and digging your way back out, it it makes or breaks a person in this entrepreneurial world.
Yeah.
So
Well, we've heard all our, well, maybe not all our lives, but for a long time, cash is king. Well, I
cash.
think that's true in buying things and purchasing. Cash is always king. It's usually going to get you a better deal. If you're trying to buy a used car and you show up
Yeah,
at the guy's house and you have $100 bills, that's better than I'll Venmo you some money. That cash is king. But in business, you said it, cash flow
cash
is
flow.
king. Cash flow is king. Cash could be great, but if you don't have it flowing, it's not going to work. So, what is it about what you've learned with Bank on Yourself that could help business owners specifically have better cash flow?
You know, one, this concept requires, I don't know that requires is an accurate way to say it, but if you're going to work with me, I feel pretty bold and confident in saying that I'm going to require that you earn more than you spend every month. Otherwise, I will say wait. And unless you have a huge lump sum of cash ready to go to fund the policy for multiple years, if you don't have that monthly or annual cash flow that you can save each and every year, then this strategy won't work for you very well. So the fact that it just requires that either a huge lump sum of cash that you can spread in over multiple years, or for you to make that much money, like more than you spend every month, like that's a good thing. It's a good incentive. One of my clients very recently, uh, I talked to her yesterday, and she is very incentivized now to get her business up and running at a, where she has enough revenue left over at the end of each month to begin her policy on not just herself but her three kids as well. And she's on fire for this strategy, and she's excited for the um, the legacy wealth that she's going to initiate building.
Having access to liquidity, having liquidity,
That's another
and
huge
and having tax-free
mm-hmm.
growth and
penalty
tax-free
free.
advantages, those are really game changers for a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people. Why do traditional financial planners and traditional financial plans seem to overlook that?
Man, there you could go in a few different directions with that. Um, I'll say traditional financial planning is um, they're more so just interested in you paying into that strategy, that investment option, whether it's in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or whatever it is, real estate, syndications. They want you to use cash flow and savings to invest in those things. This is a little different because you're not you're not changing it up You're not totally throwing out what they're having you do. You're just putting it into a financial vehicle before you throw it into the investment. And this particular financial vehicle has something called uninterrupted compounding growth, uh, which is something that a lot of financial advisors just aren't aware of. Even very experienced financial advisors with 20 plus years, 30 years of experience don't either they don't know about the benefits of this strategy and how it can marry with a traditional financial investment strategy, but or they just are ignorant of it. They or choose not to. I'm not honestly. I'm not sure why. Because if somebody actually understands the benefits of this
Yeah.
strategy, it just makes sense. Like it just does.
Well, I think what you mentioned there, this uninterrupted compound growth, is something that people miss a lot, and that's where the Dave Ramsey's of the world who rail against whole life insurance just in principle, I think misses the opportunity. That doesn't mean he's wrong about a lot of things, but on this one, I think there's the average person doesn't make enough money to justify this type of policy, this type of
Right.
strategic investment. But
No, maybe not.
maybe not.
Uh,
What I was going to say though on that and get your feedback on this is this uninterrupted compound growth concept. You said it probably clearer than anybody else I've heard say it. Is that this is not the investment vehicle. This is where you put it to do what you're going to do.
Right.
You put this extra one step in there, and then you can essentially. You didn't say this. This is the way I kind of explain it to people: is you can spend that money an infinite number of times. It's just got to stop off in the appropriate built policy first, and then that $100 you put in there, you could spend essentially an infinite number of times because it continues to grow, and you can put it back and spend it again.
When I talk to people who have that more traditional mindset, whether they're financial advisors or just of that mindset, my question to them that I love to ask is, does having access to your funds in your policy take away from any of your investment options? Because I will say this also, that traditional financial planning thinks for some reason they just like many people don't understand that you can still access your dollars. They think it's either or, but in reality, it's both and. You can do both. You can have your cake and eat it too. So it's like one of the only financial vehicles that I've ever heard of. And if anybody knows of any other ones, please let me know. I would be glad to look at that. But that allows you to do both and. So
What was the hardest part of this bank on yourself concept for you to understand? Because it is complicated, can be.
oh man, I I there's so much. There's I'm learning stuff every day, and I've been doing this for a while, and I've been studying this since 2015. Uh, things change too, so there's part of that. But I don't know. The light bulb moment for me happened a long time ago. My oldest brother, who's a client of Mark Willis, um, he went ahead and implemented the strategy for like, and I will say this too. My dad also sold life insurance, and his take on life insurance was more of the traditional mindset.
Yeah.
And so my brother going ahead and taking that leap and setting up his policies anyways, even in spite of what my dad's advice was, which was like whole life is ridiculously high fees and commissions, and you'll never have any cash value, and it'll take 20 years before you have anything of worth in there to utilize, and it was just like they were talking about different things. So my brother put this strategy to work. I saw it actually working for him, and he gave me his best description of what it was, which it's hard to describe, as you know. And but this idea of being able to like put it in here where it's growing, and you can still use it without stopping the growth that's happening here, and you can get the growth over here like that. That was probably the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around. But once I did, I was like, okay, how can I get as many dollars as possible into this strategy? So
Well, think about it as a real estate investor. You could buy a small apartment complex or a quad or a duplex for whatever amount of money, and let's say that costs you $1 million to buy the thing, and then you put $1 million cash in it, and there's a cash on cash return.
right,
That's the big thing real estate investors talk about. And if you get 10% cash on cash return, That's pretty great, right?
Not too
Pretty
shabby.
great. So that's a 1.1 million at the end of the year, and then it continues to grow. But what if you parked it, as you were suggesting earlier, took that million and parked it over here? So now you're not going to get a 10% cash on cash return. Let's
No.
not kid ourselves. But after the appropriate amount of time it's been sitting in the policy, you'll be able to pull out a certain portion of that, let's say 70 to 90% of that money. So now you can pull 7 to 900 out, but the million is still growing at a dividend rate of what, 5 to 8%, depending on where it is.
Just depending on, yeah.
Maybe
just depending on it.
12% in some
It's
years.
definitely not going to be less than zero, and it never
Correctly.
has been in well over a century and a quarter. So
But then you could take, it's growing over here at 5 to, let's just call it 5%.
5%.
Let's call it 5%. It's growing at 5%, and then you borrow, say, 900,000, and you still go buy that other property, and you get a cash on cash return of 10% over here plus the 5%. Just one extra step makes you an extra 5%.
absolutely, and it's tax-free growth. What happens if you were to pass away during that like repayment period, like of you paying back your policy loan, which by the way, like what if you needed to skip months or years in payments? Like you could do that. But if you passed away, you'd, traditionally be leaving your family with a bunch of debt or just the asset. But now, like the death benefit is always going to be more than what you're borrowing. And so your family gets still like probably at least 6 figures of a death benefit. They're now inheriting the asset as well, the property, the $1 million property, and then they get to benefit from the cash value and the cash flow and the appreciation and the tax benefits of owning real estate and so on. So
I don't understand why people wouldn't do it, but that's just me. I'm
some
all
people
in.
are incentivized not to be on board with this strategy. Like so, if their livelihood's based on it, typically people will steer a different direction.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dubb also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after using Dubb for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. I mean, Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. That's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dubb. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
Well, I don't remember who said it, but I heard a long time ago is that no man will ever believe that which will take money out of his pocket.
Yeah.
So you're never going to believe something that's going to take money out of your pocket. But you've been doing this. You've been in this industry and looking at this for a decade now. I would be interested to know how your views on wealth building have changed and what you believe now, or maybe to reword this, what you used to believe about wealth building that you no longer believe.
Well, so I've always been a fan of this whole kind of income accumulation and this wealth accumulation that occurs whenever you invest in a property. Like my first house that I ever bought was I was 23 years old. I paid $8,500 for it cash, like
Wow.
$8,500, and it was a dump. It was a very rough house. Cleaning it out, I won't even go to it. But bank gave me a line of credit for $50,000. I used 42,000, renovated it, got it rent ready, rented it out, made an $800 a month profit. And then I used the profits and cash flow from my other income to pay down that line of credit as fast as possible. And then I did it again. I refinanced that house, and then I pulled out 60 grand of equity, bought another rental property. It accumulates and grows and compounds. And now I had 2 rental properties making $800 a month net, and just kept doing that again and again, and eventually turned them into corporate rentals, furnished housing, midterm, short-term rentals. Those 2 houses were making, I don't know, like 2,000 to 2,500 a month net, and it just kept rolling. And that's how I started out. I guess where I would have changed from since then is I just I didn't realize back then, like I said earlier, about how important it is to have consistent cash flow. And throughout doing some of those moves and buying those different properties, there were times like I put a lot on credit cards to furnish a short-term rental or something. And then paying off the credit card debt was like, oh man, it's like clawing your way out of a bear trap. And so it's just kind of turned into, instead of using other people's money, use my own banking system, and as much as possible, and then work on the repayment schedule in whatever way makes the most sense, which can change for different situations. So,
What is a financial myth that you wish you could bust forever?
financial myth that I wish I could bust forever. I would say the myth that you have to choose one or the other with Bank on Yourself indefinitely. Having the ability to access your cash and have it grow for you without interruption, as if you never pulled the money out in the first place, is what a lot of people are not quite ready to believe fully until they can see a proven concept. It is kind of a misconception that they just don't think is possible, and it's mostly because they've never heard of anything like it. It just takes time to show people that. So I would love to just be able to bust it one time for everybody, so that everybody can know that that is how this actually works.
Yeah, you don't have to choose.
Yeah, people don't have to choose. They can save, they can then borrow from their savings. Their savings will continue to grow as if they never touched it, and then they can still go in and use their savings to purchase investments.
You know, I know that for you, faith plays a significant role in your life and your business, but how's your faith influenced the way you approach helping people financially?
Man, stewardship is the word that comes to mind. And for me, uh, the being allowed and like invited into these people's lives that I'm working with, many of them are very, very successful financially, and they've stewarded their wealth really well. I also have many clients who are still learning how to steward wealth and grow it. And in both scenarios, I just get to help make improvements. I would say for those who are still working that muscle, the stewardship muscle, it is they probably receive the greatest impact from that. But in all cases, what I love the most about this is that we're not stewarding our wealth just so that we can accumulate a whole lot of money throughout our lifetime, because we can't take it with us. There's I've never seen a hearse with a U-Haul attached to it. Like, so helping people work through this idea of not just preparing the money for the next generation, but preparing the next generation for the money, because in this case it's exponential, and
Yeah.
it's like insane when we start looking at the numbers, what the financial legacy can accumulate to over one's lifetime, just one generation's lifetime, not to mention 2, 3, and 4. It's like, it's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, this is how I believe, if I'm correct, the Rockefellers, this is the strategy that they used, and there are many other very wealthy families that created this banking system for their own families that perpetuated wealth for generations. You also advocate, you're a big advocate for having a strong why in what you do. Can you share an example of a client you've worked with who connected their financial decisions with the why and the outcome that that might have had in their investments?
It's hard to pick just one. Um, Man, I don't know if I can pick one. I've got several clients. Like, one lady she started up her own business. Um, it's a beauty salon, and she's been in the same industry for a very long time, like 20, 30 years. She's kind of burnt out in that industry, and she is very passionate about this beauty salon. She wants to start it up, and she doesn't know how, because it takes a lot of money to invest and purchase the equipment needed to do this thing. Well, after talking with us, like, we were able to start, like, find the money for her as much as possible from within her own financial options, not other people's money, and free up as much of that as possible in a short amount of time as possible so that she could finance her own business. And her why for that was very strong. She was kind of burnt out, and then two, the passion she had to help other people, uh, just bring out what God has given them, and make them feel beautiful. Like, to her, it is a ministry, and she is, involving faith in that whole process. I've got other clients who are doing this for their kids and their grandchildren, and it's incredible to see just how much people are giving. There are so many people in this world, and you don't even realize it, and that have just such a heart for giving, and just to other people, to other nonprofit organizations, to a variety of different things. But just, yeah, I don't know. Does that kind of answer
Yeah,
the question?
that's really good. I mean, I think we have to connect our why to those financial decisions, and I think we'll be rewarded in ways beyond just the numbers, which leads me to my next question. A lot of people think of financial investing purely in numbers, but there's a strong emotional aspect to investing and what you do with your money, and there's a lot of limiting beliefs around money. People have very jacked up money stories, as I like to say. They have false beliefs about money being evil and it's only for greedy people, etc. Have you run into that in your educational processes with helping people understand bank on yourself? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ever going to change somebody's mind. All I can do is just present the information, and then it's up to them to decipher what that means, and if they can agree with what I'm telling them. But a lot of people uh, just need a good enough reason, and that's one of my favorite questions. If you do a financial analysis with me, to ask is, like, we're gonna boil it down to what your top financial goals are, and I always ask this follow-up question. Once I get your goals, I ask, why do you want those goals? Even though I can probably guess, like, yeah, I want financial freedom. Everybody wants financial freedom, but why? And that just a little layer deep, like another layer or two deep from there. And I do actually like going 2 or 3 layers deep. It pulls out information that people didn't know that they were like had in them. Why do you want financial freedom? Well, I want to spend time with my kids. Why do you want to spend time with my kids? Because time's limited and I want to have an impact on my kids. Well, why do you have an impact on your kids? So that they can go and actually like make a change in the world. And it's not just me like now making a change in the world, it's like generations who are now making changes into this world and hopefully for the better. So I think that really kind of comes down to it is if you can wrap your head around why, then you can absolutely figure out how to wrap your head around this strategy and whether or not it's going to be what I think, like what it is, what it actually is.
So the name of the show here, Evan, is The Root of All Success. So I want to ask you about your success specifically. So if you had to think back to all the success you've had as a real estate investor and now as a bank on yourself professional, if you had to narrow that down to one key that has unlocked success for you more than anything else, what would that one thing be?
Well, so by the way, I'm going to be looking down at my notes for just kind of reference, but the thing about success is that it's not just like a one-time event that happens in life. It's going to be something that will happen hopefully daily, you know, or at least weekly or monthly. But if you can figure out how to, you know, what success means to you, then and what it qualifies as successful, and get to do that every day, I think that's going to be one really good thing. And then I believe that, you know, working that'll lead to working harder on yourself than on your job or your hobbies or whatever. And if that's probably the best thing that you can possibly do for your loved ones, and if you figure out how to do this in a way that's lucrative, like all the more power to you. But I think what it comes down to is that's even more important is just loving what you're doing. And if you can love what you're doing, I would say then you're a winner.
So if you define success, which I'm assuming that's the question you're answering, is that success is if you love what you're doing. If you define it that way, what do you believe that you're successful personally?
I do. I think so. Jim Rohn I'm a big Jim Rohn fan. And I think he said it best. He said, you know, success is simply the, you know, simple disciplines practiced every day. And as far as like, you know, do I do that? Yes, I absolutely practice simple disciplines every day. I'm trying to add to that. I mess up sometimes and I don't do it every single day. But you can always get back on track. And so, and another reason why I know that I'm successful is because I won't ever stop or give up. And if I'm doing it right, I will reach the peak of my success on the very moment that I leave this planet. So, and go home to meet my maker. So, yeah, I think that's probably some of the key telltales.
So put your coach hat on for just a second. There's a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this show, and they're looking for some advice from successful people. So what's your best success tip? What's your best advice for an entrepreneur?
I would say learn to be ambitious. I didn't learn ambition until probably some point in college. I just realized it all of a sudden that I was ambitious. And I wish now that somebody would have told me, cultivate ambition, because I think I would have done a whole lot more even as a kid. And I would have maybe taken leaps of faith that I didn't ever take because, I don't know, I was too busy playing video games or something, you know? So, not that there's anything wrong with playing video games, but just find a healthy balance. And if you're taking the time to be ambitious, that's going to lead to the disciplines. If you're practicing the disciplines, then you're going to think about things more often. And if you think about things more often, you're going to avoid the dumb tax that Keith Cunningham likes to talk about. And avoiding the dumb tax feels great. So I don't know if you need a fire or incentive. Like, by the way, for those who don't know, the dumb tax is a consequence that could be avoided that you endure. Enduring a consequence that could have been avoided simply
Yep.
by knowing.
Been there, done that many times. Unfortunately, still paying some tax off. They had to come after me to pay it off.
Yeah. One last thing, I'd say most importantly though, if you can learn the balance of contentment and with where you are now, while still pursuing what you want in life, and figure out how to do that balance, I think it's absolutely vital because life, a life all about success and achieving all the time, will kind of lead to you feeling like you'll never reach success. And so let's set the expectation to take some time, revel in our victories, rest, enjoy it, enjoy life, be in the moment, get from the day, take as much from the day as you can. Those, that right there, ambition, all of that is going to lead to everything that I just said.
Let's talk about some advice. These are kind of rapid fire questions here at the end. What's the best piece, no, you know what, I'm going to flip it. What's the worst piece of financial advice you've ever heard?
I'll throw it all on black. I don't know, man.
That worked out for the Fred Smith FedEx, but probably doesn't work for everybody else.
I don't think that's going to be the case for every single person, no. But worst financial advice is probably not doing anything.
Yeah,
Just continuing with what you've been doing. I've had clients multiple times that they liked this whole bank on yourself concept. They believed that it was going to work out kind of like how I said it would. And I have the confidence and know that what I'm saying is going to be the case. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. But having them believe that at my level, like, I can only lend my belief so much. And so, but they've just kind of been on that edge, ready to jump out, and it would make sense for them if they do, and they would land, and it would be a cool Superman pose, but they're just not jumping. And it's because maybe they've been burned in the past from other financial ideas that they thought were really cool and so on. But what ends up happening is they just keep doing what they've been doing, and what they've been doing, the reason they're calling me is because what they've been doing is not enough. Yeah. And so they got to do something, and it's those who choose to do nothing. I always say that, and I think I got this from Mark Willis, I believe, like, the best plan that somebody can go with is the plan that they actually end up going with. So yeah. It needs to be something.
What's the best financial decision you ever made?
Financially, it was making it more of a priority to grow the amount of cash flow that was coming in monthly, yearly, so on. Good. Once I had that light bulb moment, once I had paid enough of that dumb tax, I put more focus and energy into that. And Tony Robbins always says, where focus goes, energy flows. Like, that's so true. Like, I started thinking about how I could start growing the amount of cash flow that was coming in on a regular, consistent basis that I knew I could count on every time. And it made a world of difference. I mean, you can ask my wife. It was like night and day. And my wife she still points out, like, Evan, like, you seem like just like the world's been lifted off of your shoulders. And I'm not any less busy or stressed or anything like that, but I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Yeah. And there's still urgency, but it's a healthier way of living is just making sure that you have that cash flow. If you're going through this world and you're using other people's money, you're going into debt, like that to me, it'll kill your soul. Like, I mean, it'll just rip it right out. So maybe
Well-
some strong language for that, but
Well, what's one piece of financial advice that you'd give everybody that would change their life? What would that be?
start, well, let me ask you this. When's the best time to plant a tree? Today? A lot of people say today. The answer is like, 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Like that would have been a better time to plant a tree probably. In the same way, start now. Even if it seems like a daunting task, start
Because
now.
you can't go back.
You
go
can't.
back.
You can't. And so at this point in life, you can only prepare and move forward in a better manner than you've been doing over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
Set the next generation up for success. Teach them these philosophies, these principles, the roots of success, so that they can go and do a better job. And they're going to do that, and they're going to say, man, I really wish I'd have known this 20 years ago. And they're going to teach the next generation. Then we're all just getting better and better and better every single year with each passing generation. Nelson Nash, who's like the grandfather of Bank on Yourself, he was a forester, and the vision, planning to grow a forest and as a profitable business. It's not like you can plant the trees and then like turn a profit the next year or 6 months later or anything like that. You gotta wait decades before you can flip a profit out of a forest, and then to maintain it so that you don't ever stop making a profit, you have to be strategic about it. And it can always be improved upon. It always needs pruning. There's always ways to make it better. But just planting the seeds now is probably the best advice that I can give somebody.
Well, Evan, I want to thank you for being on the show today. Congratulations on your success and what you're doing to help people with Bank on Yourself. I want to share with everybody how to get in touch with you if they want to do Bank on Yourself or at least have a consultation. You're offering free consultations.
Absolutely.
Just sit down, no obligation, just look at their financial situation. And the best way for people to do that is go to therealjasonduncan.com/bankonyourself. therealjasonduncan.com/bankonyourself. And there's going to be a little drop-down menu there, and it'll have a place for you to choose a name. Just choose Evan. Just choose Evan's name because he's the person you heard it from, and he'll set up an appointment with you, talk with you all about it. Is there any other way that people can connect with you, maybe on social media or any other way that you want to connect?
Yeah, you can email me at evan@greathousefs.com. That's F is in Fox, S is in Solutions, and evan@greathousefs.com. And that's going to be the best way to contact me directly. Otherwise, going through that link works great. You can also get my, feel free to hand out my numbers and any contact information.
So we'll put all that in the show notes so you'll be able to get in touch with Evan. So, Evan, thanks for being on the show, man.
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it. Another entrepreneur I'm talking to about his journey to success. And this whole Bank on Yourself thing, listeners, I want you to really consider it. No matter where you come from and what you think about investing or whole life insurance or any other types of financial money matters, I think you owe it to yourself to at least take a look at this. For me, my journey on becoming familiar with the Bank on Yourself model started with a podcast just like this. I heard somebody talking about it, and I said, wait a minute, I can get infinite compounding growth on something that grows tax-free, and nobody can get to it. The IRS can't get to it. This is safe? Yeah, it is. And as I started to look into it, I thought, well, I've got to do this. And that's where I've been, and that's why I like working with people like Evan, and he mentioned Mark Willis a couple of times. I mean, these are great guys in the industry that can help you. So go check them out. If you want to book an appointment, therealjasonduncan.com/bankonyourself. Just on the drop-down menu, click Evan's name there to make sure that you can talk directly with Evan. So stay tuned because the next and final segment of the show is about to begin. All right, you know what time it is. It's time for JD's Public Service Rants. This is the part of the show where I say stuff that shouldn't have to be said out loud, but clearly it does. And so if what I'm about to say applies to you, consider yourself on notice. Okay, look, we all fly on airplanes, and I get it. You've been on the airplane for the last 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, and when that little bing noise happens, you want to get off that plane just as fast as everybody else on the plane. But do us all a favor. Do not get out in the aisle, block the aisle, and sprint to aisle 5 when you were out on aisle 28 to begin with. The plane doors aren't going to open any earlier. All you're doing is pissing everybody off. So wait your turn. We're all going to get off the plane in time. So if that's you, don't be that guy. Well, there you have it, another rant, a little public service announcement for me, your friend JD. If you have one that you would like me to share on the show, just send me an email. I'll be happy to drop it in here. And if you are that guy, don't be that guy. Make sure you tune in again next week when we talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. Until then, as always, I'm the real Jason Duncan. This is the root of all success, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.